Hi everyone, it's Miss Alexa. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build your own space satellite using materials you can find around your house. You have the option to make it edible, and for that you can use food and you can eat it once you're done. Or you can make it non-edible and then you can use recyclable materials you can find around your house and then you can display it in your room. Um, so today I'm going to be showing you an example of the one that I made, and then I'm also going to be showing you a walkthrough um, for how to put the parts together and complete it. So I don't have the same materials around my house that you may have around your house. So I'll give you different options for what you can use for your space satellite, but um, use your imagination if you don't have that, if you don't have the options that I tell you for each part of the satellite. Um, you're going to make it your own. It's not going to look exactly like mine because we have different materials in our houses. So, anyway, here's mine. And it's just an example of how it might look like, the overall structure. Um, so this is the one that I made. Uh, but first, what you will need is a container. So the container on my space satellite is this peach coral box. And how I made mine is I took a crayon box and then I wrapped it in colored paper. So if you're also making it non-edible, you can use a crayon box, you can use a juice box or a sponge. And if you're making an edible one, you can use a brownie or a Rice Krispie treat. Um, so for either, you can use anything that is a rectangular box shape. So um, the container is what holds everything else together. It's the main part of the satellite. So it's going to be like probably a little bit bigger than the other parts. And it's just going to house every other part to it. So um, something like that. If you don't have those exact materials, don't worry. Just find something else that is like a box and would work for the container of the satellite. Um, Next, you will need a power source. So the power sources on my satellite are these solar panels on the sides. So how I made mine is I had this material hanging around. Uh, See, it's just a material on this side, um, but something that you could use if you want the same type of look for the non-edible satellite. You can take and cut a rectangle out of a cereal box, and it'll have that same firmness. It'll still be as hard, um, and then you can use aluminum foil and just wrap it around that. So then it'll still be that shiny texture, but it'll look the same. So you can use that for a power source. If you are making it edible, then it's not going to be shiny, but you can make it still have the same shape. So you can use a sugar wafer or a graham cracker, something that still has that thin rectangle shape. So the power source is also the thing that provides power for the satellite. So it's usually a solar panel, but that's what a power source does. Next is the communication device. The communication device is what relays everything that the satellite has gathered and sends it back to Earth. So, my communication device is this half sphere, the semi-sphere, and it's got this toothpick inside that I glued, and that's kind of like the antenna of it. So, how I made mine is I took actually the bottom smaller half of an Easter egg, and I tore that off and I wrapped it in aluminum foil so it has still that same look, that shiny metallic look that a lot of things on a satellite do have. And then I just glued, a toothpick inside. So, other things that you can use, it can be even like a flat disc shape. I just found an Easter egg and I thought this would actually work well. So, but other things that you can use are any small plastic plates. You can take it out of, you could cut it even from like cardboard and then wrap it in aluminum foil, just like how I did with my communication device. For the edible ones, you can use a pretzel and just, you know, take a part off of the pretzel and just use an antenna for that. You only need an antenna, um, or you can just have a disc, or you can have both. But something that will be able to communicate messages back to Earth. So next, you need an orientation device. An orientation device is what shows which way is facing up, which side of the satellite is facing up. So on mine is these two beads, and they're glued together, and then they're glued to the container of the satellite. So the orientation device can just be like any little tube. So for that, any tube works for the non-edible satellite, but if you're making it edible, you can make gummy. You can make it with gummy candy or something that's long, and then you can cut part of it off, and then you can attach it to your satellite. So anything long and that looks like a tube. And then lastly is scientific instruments. And for your scientific instruments, it can be a wide range of things because scientific instruments have a wide range of uses. Scientific instruments can be scientific cameras that capture pictures of planets and stars and other things in the universe. They can be little tools and gadgets that measure chemicals on a planet's surface. So there are a lot of different types of scientific instruments. So this can really be up to your interpretation. So what I used for mine, these are my scientific instruments here. And what I used for these are thumbtacks, and I used a small nail, which is this small thing inside here. But it's really whatever you want to use. Other things you can use screws, nuts, bolts, jewels. You could even, girls, if you want to, like, if you don't use a pair of earrings anymore, you can actually just take it out, take the backing off, and then poke it through, and you can use that for a scientific instrument if you want to bedazzle your satellite a little bit more. And then for edible satellites, you can use any type of candy. You could use Smarties, and you can also use pretzels. So any candy you think that would represent a scientific instrument well. So once you have gathered all your materials, anything you want to use for your satellite, you can start making it. To attach your materials, if you're making it non-edible like me, you can use glue, a glue stick, a glue bottle, tape, uh, toothpicks, and if you are making it edible, you are probably going to need frosting, so that acts like a glue, and toothpicks. So remember to not eat the toothpicks. You can eat the frosting, but the toothpicks, say you're using like a Rice Krispie treat and you're using a sugar wafer for your power source. So you've got your Rice Krispie treat and you've got your sugar wafer as your power source. You can stick a toothpick through the sugar wafer and then stick it into the Rice Krispie. And that's all you have to do to attach it. You don't have to use frosting for everything. Because frosting, it could come off the part. So it might be a little bit more stable with toothpicks. But if you need frosting for other parts, like you'll probably need frosting maybe for attaching the communication device to the container, then use frosting. So you have all your materials. The first thing to do is to take your container and then you'll be attaching everything to that because that's the main part. So what I attached first is my power sources. So how I did my power sources, I already told you I had a specific material hanging around my house, so I used that. But to the back of it, I just took a toothpick about halfway. I taped it to the back of this material, and then this already has some pokes and stuff because I already tried it on this one and some glue, but and I've already made some holes on this to make it a little bit easier, but you can stick it through. I already had a hole in place. You can still poke through even this thin cardstock cardboard material. It might be a little bit hard and you might want to ask your parents to help you, but I did it. Sometimes it takes you a couple tries to get it to be a little bit more in there, but sometimes a part of a toothpick will break off, but it took a couple tries for me. So you can also ask your parent, but you just poke it through here, and then for the other side, just poke it through. So there I've got my power sources. And like I said, I taped it on this side, half the toothpick to there, and then half the toothpick is in the container right now to hold it in place more. So there's the power sources. The next thing I used was my communication device. So to attach my communication device, I had this Easter egg. I already told you how to do that, but I just wrapped it with aluminum foil, and that's how I made my communication device. I also wanted to add a little antenna to it. So what I'm gonna do right now is attach this toothpick to the middle of my communication device to make it look a little bit more realistic. What I did for this, if you want to do the same thing as me, I cut off like a quarter of the toothpick. So you can see that the pointy end of this side is cut off just to make it a little bit shorter. And then I also colored it with a silver Sharpie. You can see it's not, it's not that wood color that toothpicks have. So I'm just going to take my glue bottle and I'm going to glue, put a little glue on this side, the side that doesn't have the pointy side, and I'm just gonna put some glue on that. I'm gonna hold it in place a little bit because glue does take a little bit of time to dry, and then I'll attach it in there. So just gluing it inside here. and I'm just gonna hold that and let it dry. Um, and then the last thing you actually just need to do is put your scientific instruments, which is really anything you want it to be, up to your interpretation. Like I said, I have some holes already poked through for that. So I'm just gonna, I'm still holding this because it needs to dry, but I think it's mostly good. I'm gonna poke through my thumbtacks. I use thumbtacks for this. So there's one. I'm gonna poke my other two through. And if this is too sharp for you, or you feel uncomfortable, ask your parents. They'll be more than happy to do that part for you. Then I took one small nail and I poked it in the middle. Okay. So I still need to attach my communication device to the satellite, the whole thing. So I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to add some glue to the bottom or a little bit to the side so that it's kind of upright when it's sitting. So there's my glue. I'm going to put it right there and hold it in place. But that is the last thing I needed to add to my space satellite. So here it is, all done. Still holding this a little bit because it's still drying, but there it is. I hope you enjoy making your own space satellite, and I hope you learned a little bit more about the different parts of the satellite, because these are the main parts that satellites are actually have and are built out of. So I hope you enjoy making your own space satellite, and I hope everyone has a great day. Bye, everyone.